Oh, hello, hello, hello. How are you all doing today on this wonderful, wonderful, glorious Monday? Sorry, I'm a little late, y'all. It's been an interesting time over this past weekend. I had an opportunity. So welcome. I'm sorry, y'all. Welcome to Love Tips and Velvet Lips. I am your host, Marla Renee Stewart, here to talk to you all about love, intimacy, relationships, anything that you'd like to talk about. And of course, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. So if you do have a question, all you have to do is submit your question to qrco.de/lovetipsama. And I will be happy to answer any of those questions for you, to let you know the answers to whatever kind of love, intimacy, relationship question that you have. About the big O, whatever it is that your heart desires, please feel free to submit your question. Let's see here. So y'all know it is Kingtober. And since it is Kingtober, that means we are talking all about the fun, kinky stuff, right? Hoping Meta doesn't, attack me for saying that, but it's all good. So last week we talked about basics and sort of history. We didn't do a deep dive or anything, but we talked about the basics of history, all of those different things as it pertains to Kingtober. And this month it is all about hey Tree, yes, you finally catch alive. Hey, nice to see you. It is all about consent and negotiation, right? One of the things that I think a lot of mainstream communities get from kink, and I talk about it in the book. I wrote an article about it in the book called The Power of BDSM. And, I wrote this little kind of snippet about how so many other communities or mainstream communities are taking the sort of basic rules and things from kink and establishing them elsewhere, right? So even thinking about consent, negotiation, and even aftercare are those things that we typically, don't talk about. That we just don't talk about sort of in everyday conversation, right? But when we bring these values to our love life, it can be really valuable, more or less to say, right? So when we think about consent, particularly around, there's different types of consent models. We have SSC, which is kind of going away, just because there's just been a lot of, it has negative connotations that go along with that. But SSC stands for safe, sane, consensual. And it typically was used in the past as a way to identify sober communities, right? So if you wanted to go into a dungeon and you wanted to be sober, or you wanted the place, you ran the dungeon perhaps, and you wanted to be a sober place, that is where you would say, hey, we have an SSC model. So they've kind of, as the community has been catching on and thinking about what is safe, what is sane, are we really safe in kink? I don't know. Are we trying to say we're insane? Like, what does that even mean? So with all those questions came the 3C and 4C models around, and that's care, compassion, consensual. And so with that said, moving into this like 3 or 4C model, that would be sort of the more quote unquote sober way, right? If you wanted to establish your play space in that way. Most popular, I would have to say, are the rack and prick. Most of the time it's going to be rack, which is risk-aware consensual kink. And that is basically saying like, hey, people are going to do what they're going to do. You are empowered to love yourself. You are empowered to take control of the situation. You have to be aware, if you're sober, not sober, you have to be aware of what you are doing with your own body, right? So risk aware. And the same thing goes for prick, which is just personal responsibility, informed consensual kink, right? So again, just making sure that, hey, I've had a few drinks, or just let you know, like I smoked some weed before I came into this play space. Just really informing people about how they are meeting you when you are in a particular scene, right? And then, of course, I really love, if you haven't followed Candace in the trauma-informed consensual kink or TIC. And I believe it's the Instagram handle is trauma-informed kink. And so the trauma-informed consensual kink, I believe, is really great for a great model for professionals. So if you are teaching kink, if you are teaching these things, you should be looking into this model as a way to engage in play when you're in play spaces, right? So TIC is really phenomenal. It has a really great kind of scope around it, more so than I would say prick rack or CCC or SSC. But so yeah. So those are the different consent models. And I think you should really think about how you engage in your consent, because at SDS, SDS Con, we kind of talk about like all the different kinds of consent. And we always say, explicit is best, but we understand that there is a nuance to consent. Consent is not just like, do you want to do this thing? It's not a simple, it doesn't necessarily have to be a simple yes or no. I remember I was taking a consent class and someone says, they have to tell you, with their mouth, yes or no. And I was like, well, what if someone's mute? And what if someone's deaf? Like, those are just like not possibilities, right? But there are ways to engage in consent that can be nonverbal, that can be, it can be guided off of intuition, right? And so understanding that these are the nuances around consent is, I think, is very, very important. So understanding the type of consent, always explicit is going to be best, and however that explicit way may be, but understanding that there is a nuance to consent. And I'm also a believer that, people are like, well, if you're drunk or high, you can't consent. And I'm like, that's not true. People do that all the time. And so that's just sort of unrealistic. Considering, the kind of spaces and play spaces and things that I've been into. So that's also something to think about. But with that said, the other part of that piece, right, is around negotiation. So when you are consenting to a scene and maybe a play space or wherever your space may be, really thinking about what you are negotiating, what you want to do. And I always say, be explicit. What are the things that you want to do in a scene? Are you telling your lover, hey, I would like to do this. I would like to do this. How does that feel for you? Or I would like to do this. I would like to do this. How does that feel for you? And really having a full understanding, because I believe you can negotiate a good scene all in all, if you are explicit in what you want and having some goals behind you, right? Really talking about how you are negotiating consent, understanding what your verbal, nonverbal cues are when it comes to stopping a scene or slowing down a scene or changing an instrument or, whatever the case may be. So I, when we're negotiating with someone, again, just making sure you have a full grasp on who you are, on what you would like to do and how you want to manage that. Now, there's an array. Now, if you haven't downloaded my free activity bucket list, please make sure you check that out, because in that bucket list, it has a variety of behaviors, right? Of like things that you can try, things that you can do, things that can turn your partner on, things that turn you on, things you would like to try, all those different things. And when it comes to negotiating, really thinking about all of the different aspects. So I was coaching a couple where they listed everything. Like, would you do this? Yes, no, receiving, giving, all the things. And it was really fruitful for them because they could always go, refer back to the document and say like, hey, I thought about this, receiving, or I thought about this giving. And, it seemed to be, a hit. So if you have not yet, please download that activity bucket list. It is free. And it kind of helps you to think about other types of behaviors and things that you could work into your experiences, right? So with that said, yeah, there's all sorts of stuff to negotiation. But anyway, if you haven't also checked out my free arts and sciences deduction class, please make sure you check that out. It's velvetlipsexed.com/shop. You can check out the class there. And again, all of these things are free tools. So does anybody have any questions for me? Let's take a look here. Oh yeah, and I've been doing a lot of stuff. So I was at the Beyond Gender conference this past weekend. I taught a couple of different kinds of classes that I haven't taught before. Really mainly discussion type classes, but I taught sort of freeing gender, like interrogating the bipolarity of femininity and masculinity, which was very, very fruitful. Had a very full class for that one. And then I also had the challenges and joys of cis and trans non-binary relationships. And it's kind of funny because some folks kind of didn't read the description, but it was mainly for lovers. But we had some parents in there too, but it actually was very helpful for them as well. So very happy that I had those workshops down and that we had those discussions. So it was pretty good. So yeah, if you don't know, I'm like, what do I have coming up next? My calendar is so full, y'all, but all you have to do is go to velvetlipsexed.com/calendar, and you can see what classes I have going on. I'm all like, let me see what classes I have going on. Because I'm like, oh yes, the 23rd and the 24th, I'll be at Good Vibes in San Francisco and Berkeley. Super excited. So I'll be teaching my Art of De-Teasing class and my Art of Dirty Talk class there. And that weekend, at the end of the month, I'll be at Dark Odyssey, Surrender, and I'll be teaching, 4 classes. Was not expecting that. There too. So super excited about those possibilities. This week, Tia and I are going on a retreat for a grant that we had received for SDS. So sorry about the camera movement, y'all. So we'll be in Houston, tackling that stuff. So yeah. But if you are in the Bay Area, please make sure, you check out my calendar and see, what's happening, what kind of events I have, whether that's this month or next month. I don't think I have any, usually I kind of, usually kind of don't, schedule things in November and December. I kind of take that time off a little bit to sort of regroup and get ready for annual planning, mostly because during the holiday season, it tends to be a little slow up until, end of December when people start panicking about the new year, about their lives, about their intimacy lives. So, there is that. So that's awesome. Thank you so much. I'm glad you think it to be awesome. I'm hopefully, tell your friends who are in the Bay to come and see me. I'll be teaching those classes and, showing up in the Bay. So I know I'm going to also be doing some stuff in Oakland as well. So again, it'll be on my calendar. And if you haven't subscribed to my email list, please make sure you do that. And you can always do that by going on my website and putting in your email address to subscribe to my monthly newsletter. And I'll be actually doing that this week, just so you all know what is happening. And yeah, I think that's it. I haven't, it looks like y'all don't have any questions for this week. So I hope you got out of it thinking about consent negotiation, thinking about your time around Kingtober and how you are moving into cuffing season. So I look forward to hearing from you all. So again, have a wonderful, wonderful Monday and even more awesome week. And I will see you all next Monday. Bye-bye.